Looks like we got it going here.
All right, we are live. Hey Trippy, how you doing? As I pour myself a cup of tea.
I'm doing all right. I wish I had a cup of tea.
Preparation. See, you worry about stuff like sounding and looking okay. I just come
No,
in here with a
I,
mug of tea.
I don't look okay at all. But I was gonna.
I didn't say you did. I said you worry about it.
Well, that's why I worry about it. Anyway, how you
Oh
doing?
man, good. Interesting week. I feel like we've gotten off of. I know we got some more stuff on Charlie Kirk to talk about, but I feel like we're actually talking about some other stuff, which I appreciate because there are other things happening in the
Sure.
world
Oh,
right
there's a
now.
lot happening.
But
Jimmy Kimmel for one.
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably where we're going to start. We do have a bunch of fun questions that actually, this is a first for us, but I think we have some production quality. We actually have slides with questions from some of our Lincoln Square and That Trippy Show listeners and subscribers. We're going to get to some of these today. And I know as if you listen to how we attempt to do the podcast or any of our other lives, we sometimes meander, but I think this will be kind of fun. Joe, getting to the whole Kimmel situation, I want your broad thoughts on it, but just framing it from Russ's question here. Any
Well,
legal or political remedy for Trump's assault on the First Amendment? Why do I feel so hopeless? Let's come back to that second half in a minute. But first, Joe, like,
actually, no. First, don't feel hopeless. That's exactly what they want you to feel. They want you to feel exhausted. They want to exhaust the opposition. They want to numb people and get them to stop fighting. So, is there any legal or political remedy? It's for people to stand up. And you're starting to see this. Other night show hosts and others are stepping up and calling this out. I think this is this is one of those things that's breaking through all the noise because it created such noise and so many voices now asking these kinds of questions. And I think more than anything, it's, again, we keep saying this, it's get loud, be in protest at the protest, be peaceful, nonviolent, which we'll be getting into, I'm for sure, with other questions. But millions of Americans have to stand up and say, no, the First Amendment matters, and you can't do this. Now, I mean, also the other thing is to uh, to do things like stop watching any of these stations that bow to this, and start encouraging the ones that stand up to stand up and stand with them. I mean, one of the things I think there has to be even economic boycotts of this stuff, and it's not just peaceful protests, but stop buying from people who are bowing to dear leader. And that's what's happened here. I mean, ABC was, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. They didn't pick the hard way; they did it the easy way. They just collapsed, just caved.
well, and that's been the MO for whether you're a big university or a
Yeah,
law firm or other networks. I
whatever.
mean, they have consistently, and again, there are business decisions here that they are making, and I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying they're looking after their long-term economic health. So we should probably, as consumers, be doing the same thing, and which, by the way, will hit them in the bottom line. I do want to just point out, just so people really understand how nuts this is. So Sinclair, which we talked about this on the pod years ago, but Sinclair is the incredibly conservative media conglomerate that owns a bunch of local news stations. And like literally they have their anchors reading scripts, like
Yes,
pre-written scripts that come from the incredibly conservative mothership. Sinclair and I believe Nexstar, which is the other really big one,
I
they
think
are
Sinclair
trying.
denies that they do that, by the way. But that's
Yeah, well,
okay. Yeah,
well, then you see, and I want to say the Media Matters guys, and we should probably have one of them on the show, but someone did a really good mashup where they showed like 200 and something Sinclair people all reading the same thing
same
in
thing. Yeah,
sync, and it
exactly.
was a remarkable coincidence at
Yeah,
best.
because it doesn't come
Yeah,
from on high at all.
right, right. But so okay, the big thing here is they have a merger in front of the FCC right now.
Yeah.
They want to go buy, they have like a $6 billion deal right now to go buy a bunch more.
That's
That
not
is the
Sinclair. That's
single
the other
big.
one.
Yeah, and that's Nexstar is trying to buy Tenya. That is in front of the FCC. They were very clearly threatened, and they decided, based on because they want that deal to go through, to do this. That's what this comes down to. It is really remarkable. I mean, then you look at like Disney caving too, because Disney's trying to buy ESPN.
They're saying they do this, the Jimmy Kimmel thing, because of bad ratings. Well, look, bad ratings, okay. You don't do it a day after the guy. Hey, we could do this the hard way or the easy way. Oh, ratings. We got to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel. It's like ridiculous. No one's going to fall for that. The reality is, you are now in a place, and I think, Alex, you were getting to this, where they own X, they own Fox, they now own CBS, and frankly, Sinclair and Nexstar, all these things that they own, and now they're literally beating ABC and everybody else into submission by the threat of pulling their license. Freedom of the press is, First Amendment is at stake, and there's a reason it's the First Amendment, because that's the one that makes government accountable and calls out the government. That's the first place they want to eradicate, and they are doing it. It's time for every American to stand up. And again, the Democratic Party has to stop thinking of itself as a party and start thinking of itself as leading an opposition movement to what's happening in this country.
Right. Well, I should say, I think it was ABC, ESPN. They're trying to buy the NFL network and chunks of the NFL, which is in front of Trump too. So you start seeing the very clear quid pro quo. Just correcting myself there. Yeah. I mean, you do see where this is going. I mean, getting back to the question that has suddenly vanished off our screen that I'm trying to remember the first half of, but thank you to our producer for that one. But the legal political remedy, this gets to Trump's MO. Trump just goes and does shit and then waits for someone to stop him. And in this case, there's a lot we need to do before it gets to the courts. Like, yes, ultimately this will be adjudicated by the courts, who, by the way, are somewhat sick. There we go. Now I can see myself and the question. But right. So Joe, your things like going public, boycotting stuff, making these corporations feel the pain, so that there are other incentives here, so that when these corporations are waiting, because this might take 18 months, this might take 2 years.
No, look, even if somebody took this to the court, we know what's going to happen. That's going to take ages to go through the system. It'll be appealed if the Trump administration loses it, or the FCC loses it, however this go, wherever the suit is filed, and it will take forever. Meanwhile, the threats and the bullying and the costs go up. By the way, costs for everything are still going up. He hasn't done anything about that either. And this, this is, at some point, the question of hopelessness. No, you have enormous. We, the people, have enormous power. We have to start using it and stop waiting for anybody else to save us.
I think that is a good place to look at another question, which will eventually. Okay, so I do want to hit the. I just thought this one was kind of fun. Joe, was there any kind of conspiracy behind the Charlie Kirk assassination? I think not, but I do think they are using it as an excuse to on a whole bunch of things.
No. I mean, I think this is the question is, now that it happened, is there some kind of, conspiracy to use it for political purposes to do what they already had planned in terms of First Amendment and all these other things. So that's not a conspiracy. That's who they are. They have been marching on this for decades, for this moment, to create, to move to take absolute power. And as with anything else, they'll use anything to do it. Where instead of just all of us, you'd think we could at a place in the country where we'd all be able to agree that political violence is wrong, no matter where it comes from, no matter who's attacked. Political violence is wrong, must be condemned, and we should never accept it, period. But of course, it doesn't matter who else says that. Trump will say that it was, what's crazy is the guy who says that the press is the enemy of the people, is the same guy saying you can't, declaring that we shouldn't be, that it's the Democrats saying that the enemy that it's everybody else is the enemy. It's just this convoluted thing that makes no sense, but that's all to confuse people, make you exhausted, and to make you feel hopeless. And the reality is, no, they've been doing this for a long time, and they are going to keep using everything they can, particularly now with social networks, being able with the algorithms to push that divide, to get, it's the liberals who are the big extremist terrorists on the planet, all that stuff. It doesn't matter who or what. Look, people have have a, I think the smear of anybody for one person doing something that should be condemned is disgusting, but they're doing it and they'll continue to do it.
So let's go to another one. This is one I really wanted to get to, which again feeds to all this. So Elizabeth wanted to know, based on basically his approval's lowest. I wrote about this week, his on Trippi Takes, which everyone should go check out, in the 321, which is back. We're doing better at cross promoting a little bit, but basically his approval rating, depending on where you look, or pretty much everywhere you look, is lower than it's ever been, and crucially, it's in the 30s now, not the 40s, not close to 50. It's 37, 38, 39, and the things that are dragging him down are, I would say on the ICE stuff, but the economy and inflation mostly, especially, by the way, with Latino voters and a lot of the voting blocks that, again, we get under the hood on our show and stuff we write. So I won't belabor that point. Does it matter? And Joe, I saw one very specific Fox poll that had him a little triggered this week that I think does really matter.
Well, yeah, that Fox poll has the Trump. It basically saying that on the economy, it asked whether the economy is better under Trump is better or worse, and this is a Fox News poll. So 30% thought it's better, 52% say it's worse. So a majority of Americans in the Fox News poll say the economy's and this is people, 52% of them say the economy's gotten worse under Trump. Not surprising, because the prices that he said he was going to lower on day one have increased. Everything is going up and still going up. And a lot of people rightly blame tariffs for that. And I think there's even some bigger numbers on the tariff question in a lot of polls right now. But the one that still stands out to me is the one we've been talking about for the past, the Zogby poll question, asking people if they're ashamed of that Trump's their president, which for 2 or 3 polls was a majority of Americans saying that. I think it's drifted down a little bit into the high 40s recently, but that question was first asked during the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. That's when he first started asking it, and Trump has surpassed every president for more Americans saying they're ashamed that he's their president. So I mean that we've seen a lot of indications in the polling that independents, even independents who were leaning Republican, are now steadfastly not in the Republican corner, not with MAGA, not with Trump, and doesn't mean they're all going to vote for Democrats, but they're up in the air in a way they haven't been in any of the past cycles. So not even in the 2020 cycle that Biden was able to win some of those.
I mean, keep in mind, yes, but on the economic issue specifically, if 52% say it's getting worse and 18% say the same, remember, a lot of that 18%, actually, I'm more interested in that, and for a lot of ways, in that 18%, because
Sure.
a lot of people thought the economy was terrible before he took office already, right? So if they say it's the same and they already were feeling bad about it, it's not
they're not
like
feeling any
they're
better.
still feeling bad. So it's not like this is a 48-52 issue. This is a lot closer to like 30-35 to 65-70.
Yeah.
Then you start adding up all the other numbers, right? We only added like 22,000 jobs in August, lost jobs earlier in the summer in June.
No, the ICE numbers,
costs are up, CPI numbers are up. It's bad.
Yeah. No, and consumer sentiment is still now the market keeps going up, but that's the market's never been an indicator of how the economy is actually doing. We'll see. My own view is the economy is going to continue to get worse, and prices are going to continue to go up. And one thing we do know, even with the Fed lowering interest rates, the reason they didn't want to lower interest rates was because they're worried about inflation being higher than the 2% they want. Lowering interest rates because of the bad jobs market, which is what's essentially happening here, only increases the chances that prices will, that they've taken their foot off lowering inflation. So the odds, I think the odds overwhelmingly are now that prices are going to go up. And we know that the people that are hurt, I mean, today, middle and lower income Americans are having a tougher time making it. They couldn't make it with the prices. I mean, this is exactly what you pointed to, Alex, in terms of the going into 2024. They're not feeling any better. That 18 points that think it's the same and the 52 points that think it's gotten worse, they were in a lot of pain then. They're in a lot of pain now. And unfortunately, because of a lot of Trump's policies, not just tariffs, but the impact his deportations are having on agriculture prices from people, farmers are losing their livelihoods because their crops are they can't harvest their crops. So I just don't think, I think those numbers are likely to get worse. And it's significant that a Fox News poll has, even if you just look at it from the 52 worst and the 30 better, even that's a 22 point underwater kind of problem, even if you leave the sames out.
So we have one more fun one, and I'm curious where you're going to take this. I think this is from Steven. What's the thing about this Trump administration that surprised you the most? I can't say a lot of things have surprised me that much. I can think of a few, but Joe, what do you got on this one?
No, the only surprise for me is that they've been so out in the open, blatant about it. I thought they'd be doing a lot of these things more quietly, and sort of gradually, sort of a gradient. They're not. This is all out grab for absolute power. They're not hiding it. And the thing that allows an authoritarian to pull this off is not that there's no opposition. It's that the opposition is sort of fractured, doesn't recognize the grab fast enough, and it happens so gradually that democracy just dies before anybody realizes it. What's surprising me actually is, as open as they've been about it, the question is, when will America stand up? Will the American people wake up in time? And I think that's where the Democratic Party has to mobilize and literally mobilize the American people and put 3 lanterns in the one by land, 2 by sea, 3 if from within, and we are literally being somebody's got to sound that alarm and get the American people to be visible, to say out loud, no, this is too far, we won't allow this to happen. Otherwise, it'll just become more gradual sliding, and it's not so gradual anymore. I mean,
Right.
you have the easy way or the hard way, and the next day a major network caves again, and it's happened repeatedly. You've seen it with law firms, you've seen it with corporations, you're now seeing it with it, and with the First Amendment. Once that's gone, I mean, they will have every network in this country bowing to dear leader and pumping his propaganda into the next election. That's not a democracy anymore. That's Orban. That's there's a lot of places.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think the biggest surprise I've seen we're already at, people are estimating somewhere north of 60% of Project 2025 has already been implemented and completed. And I think the biggest surprise to me is how so many of the institutions or so many of the kind of the leadership of the Democratic Party is still acting like this is business as usual, and not realize, Joe, to your point earlier, how you say we need to realize we're at the forefront of a movement or an opposition movement. And like the institutions that we're talking about that a lot of people are counting on saving them are either being hollowed out or suborned as we speak. Like they ain't coming.
No, but that's not how it works. This is government of, by, and for the people. Okay, so the thing here is to realize the institutions will snap back if we demand it. In other words, if millions of Americans were protesting this, where would the Supreme Court? What's going to bring the Supreme Court? What do they fear here? Right now, they all fear him. Every one of these companies, every one of the obviously every single Republican in office fears Donald Trump and being purged by him. At the courts, he ignores it. We're still looking at maybe the TikTok thing. Well, finally, after the Supreme Court said no, it had to be banned, that the law was real, it keeps getting kicked down. Now Ellison and Trump sycophants are buying it. There'll be another network to put. TikTok wasn't all that great anyway with the Chinese. Now it'll be another X. So the point here is we are using all these things. We are participating in them. If millions of Americans were out there, Democrats would find the members would find their voice. Even the Republicans, if millions of Americans were standing up right now, the Republicans in office would fear their defeat. By the way, that's already happening to some extent because we're speaking in polls. Well, stop speaking in polls and start doing. Because what happened was, as they saw independents move away in their polling, as they saw these numbers on the economy, on immigration, that the only thing he's above water on is crime, and barely. That when they saw this, they realized, wait, we got to speed this grab up. We got to speed it up because we can't wait till 2026 because these guys might beat us. The people are starting to answer polls the wrong way. Well, the problem with that is that's what got you Texas, redistricting those 5 districts. So what you're seeing now is them speeding up the grab. They're now going to rig the districts so that they can't lose the House. They are demanding that the First Amendment be pulled down and that your license to broadcast be pulled if you don't agree with the president and what he wants. And now they're buying more, they're merging networks, they're buying TikTok. So you're going to have all of these organizations, these with the ability to communicate the president's message that won't disagree with him because they don't want their license pulled by dear leader. No, it's us. Stop watching it. Stop buying. Show up. Be visible. And yes, we need to do all of this before November of 2026. And it will be, if we're going to defeat this, it will be by a massive wave in that election. But it's got to start building now, and it has to take this stuff on.
Joe, I think that's a pretty good place for us to wrap today. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, it's but look, the hopelessness thing, that's what they want. They want hopelessness. They want people to be exhausted, and they want you to be in fear. And you need to use all that to fight back.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week, same time. And we did just drop a new Trippi show today with James Tallarico. Super fun listen. And if you haven't checked out our episode with Tom Swazi from Tuesday, you should check that one out too.
Yeah.
Head on over to Trippi Takes for some of our writing.
But what's really interesting about those two guys is they're both of them are trying to find a center voice for the Democratic Party. And the two interviews couldn't be more different. It was really interesting. You should listen to both of them. And yeah, Trippi's Take, and keep listening and following Lincoln Square. Thanks a lot, everybody.